Buenas tardes, LEC community. I am Delia, your High Impact Practice Director for the Latinx Education Collaborative, where we increase the representation of Latinx educators K through 12. Welcome to our Ask an Educator series, where we elevate Latinx educators' leadership journey and genius in hopes to inspire others. Thank you for tuning in live with us today, or the hashtag replay later on. Please engage with us in the comments and show some love or ask questions to Alicia or myself. I do have Alicia Rodriguez-Montañez from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, Spanish educator, Spanish as a world language, but also Spanish for heritage speakers out at Sumner Academy. Without further ado, Alicia, introduce yourself to the people. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, who your people are, and how you engage at Sumner Academy.
Hello. Well, my name is Alicia Rodriguez-Montañez, like you just said. I am originally from Michoacán, Mexico, from a little town called Manganticuaro, Michoacán. I grew up down there. I went to elementary school. I was born and raised over there, and I moved to California back in 2004. And after there, we stayed 1 year. Jobs were not that good for my dad and my mom. So we had to move to Kansas, where my mom had a sister. They loved the jobs here. They were so happy that they had AC and they had more job opportunities, not only in the fields like in California. So we just stayed here. So it has been about 17, 18 years that we have been living in Kansas City. I went to private schools during my middle school and high school. I went to Bishop Ward High School. So I'm a Cyclone. From 2012, I graduated from there. Then after that, I transitioned over to Donnelly, which is literally right next door to Bishop Ward High School. I went to Donnelly, got my associates from there. That's where I got my, I was able to discover what I wanted to do. And after that, I graduated from UMKC in 2017. And I have been teaching since then, since I graduated. So this is my 5th year of teaching.
Yes, 5th year. Awesome. We have Yasmin Bruno Valdez. I believe she's a Sumner graduate as well. Awesome advocate. We just hosted a panel with Air, and she was one of the panelists. Did some great work. Shout out, Yasmin. Good to see you here. She said, woo, Donnelly. So she must have gone to Donnelly too. And those of you who know Marta Silva, Dr. Marta Silva was also Alicia's teacher.
Yeah, she was.
Right?
In
Spanish at Bishop Ward. And we also share the UMKC rules. So we've been educated by the same Spanish department. Villamando sometimes tunes in. So Dr. Villamandos, if you're in the house.
I hope he remembers me.
¿Qué tal? I remember him saying, ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal? All the time. So, but yes, great Spanish department at UMKC. And yes, she's saying, yes, Sumner grad. Awesome. Well, welcome, Yasmin. She's tuning in from LinkedIn. Awesome. So, Alicia, tell us a little bit about your leadership story. So we at the LEC believe all educators are in a leadership capacity. So you have a leadership story to share. Anything related to like maybe your upbringing that has helped shape you, inspired you, molded you, your journey as a student. I know you mentioned you moved here once you were a little older. We all know that can be a struggle and a journey all in itself. Or anything as a professional that you have just experienced lots of growth. Anything that you feel is relevant to credit for where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, I can start off by mentioning that I'm the oldest in my family. And like I already mentioned, I moved here when I was 11 years old. And for me, everything was new. Everything, the language, the school system, the whole, it was a culture change, something that was very different from what I was used to. Um, I was the one in charge of figuring out things for my siblings, for my parents, for everybody in my family. So I was always the one, guess, trying to discover and look for opportunities. I was lucky enough to meet the right people at the right time that kind of shaped and led the way for me. I can start off by naming a teacher at Christ the King, which is where I went to middle school for my middle school years. That teacher, she was from my hometown. We didn't know, and once we got to that school, we figured out that she was the from Tangancicuaro. She was
Mm.
preschool teacher, kindergarten teacher, sorry. And that teacher made such an impact in my life, to be honest, because she's the one who helped my mom to enroll me in the school. She helped my mom get some financial aid so I could stay there. She connected my mom with the principal, so we were able to establish that how can I say it?
The
That relationship,
relationship
relationship, or
and the liaison
word
too, like that community link that is
exactly.
often missing, that access.
Because there was a language barrier, first of all, so my mom was not able to communicate because she doesn't speak English. So
Hmm.
that teacher is the one that helped me, and also my brother who followed, and my sister who also followed in that same school, and we all graduated from there. And I believe if it wasn't for that person, I would have I don't know what, my life has been very very affected by her and what she did for my family.
What's her
I
name?
remember, sorry to interrupt, but I remember that one time we were going to school and the kitchen got on fire. And I was, my mom was making frijoles, and then something happened, and then the whole kitchen got on fire. And it was, I remember it was close to Christmas time, and that teacher got all the school together and they gave us presents for that Christmas. So it was
Mm.
very something that I had never experienced, and I felt that support from somebody else besides my family.
Mm.
And thanks to her, I was able to continue my education there, graduated from there, and I learned about Bishop Ward High School, which
Mm.
is also where I went, and my mom obviously had to pay tuition there. There was a person, his name was Father Hermes. He was able to help my mom, and he got me a sponsor thanks to my grades and like my behavior and all of those things. So that sponsor gave my mom a job where he would pay part of my tuition and my mom would pay the rest. So if it wasn't for those certain people, I don't think I would
Mhm.
have gotten the education that I got for those years. Um, After that, I just continued my education there at Bishop Ward all my 4 years. And
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I remember sitting my senior year in my classroom, just thinking, staring at the wall, what am I going to do next? Like, what's next for me? And I remember having that connection with Senora Silva and like
Mhm.
other teachers, and I kind of wanted to be like them. Like, they were so intelligent for me, like, they knew so much, and I kind of wanted to be something like that. So I started leaning towards education. However, when I started sharing this to other people and stuff, they started telling me, "For you're not gonna get paid enough. It's not gonna be a good career for you, and all those things."
Mhm.
And my mom agreed. She wanted for me to become a teacher. She thinks that's a good thing. But other people outside of my family will always say, "No, really think about it. Maybe you do something with business or things like that."
Mhm.
So what I did, since I was not sure exactly what I wanted to do, I went to Donnelly, and there I had to figure out. I didn't even know what a associate degree was, or anything like that, because I have no knowledge in my family. None of them graduated. My parents from high school, so we weren't really sure, and I didn't know what was I going towards to. So I went in there, got some information, kind of figure out things, and I went in for an associate's degree. And I wanted to learn a little bit about accounting. So I kind of took some classes towards accounting, and I hated it. I didn't like it. I also, at the job that I was working at, I even asked for an internship in accounting, and it was not my thing. I wanted to do something. I wanted to impact like somebody's life. I wanted to make a difference. And so I started taking some classes at Donnelly. They started offering some education classes. I don't know if they still do that, but when I was there, they started the program, and they allowed me to go to classrooms and observe and learn a little bit about education. And that's where I like, yes, this is what I want to do. And I was first wanting to become an elementary teacher because that's the places that I was going to. So I wanted to be an elementary teacher. But my my accent, I was kind of scared of being a good elementary teacher due to my accent, and also I didn't know what could be my experience being with really little kids. So I don't know, I was not sure about it.
Yeah.
And then I transferred over to UMKC with my associates. And at UMKC, I remember it too that I met Dr. Cantu. Do you remember Dr. Cantu? And
Yes.
Dr. Torres. I met
Yes.
them. And again, I met the right people at the right time. Um, they talked to me. I don't know how I learned about the Latinx minor that they were offering there at UMKC
Mm-hmm.
time. And I started taking some classes for Latinx minor, and I started learning a lot about the history of Chicanos, a lot of the history of our people, and that kind of guided me to wanting to become the Spanish teacher that I am right now. Because if it wasn't for those classes, I wouldn't have discovered that passion that I had, and of teaching our little generations or
Mm.
generations that are coming about their culture, because they don't do that in other classrooms. For example, in our heritage classes, we have that opportunity to teach them about their culture, for them to be proud of their culture and all those things. So that's where I decided to become a Spanish teacher, and here I am, 5 years later, done with my degree, and now I'm pursuing a master's degree in language and literacy. And
Nice.
so I'm trying to also
That's
learn a little bit more about teaching English now, to also kind of do something for the people that needs to learn the language, because without English, it's very difficult to function in this country. So that's
mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to see if that's gonna open more doors for me, and that's my journey.
Oh, it will. Definitely will. Wow, what a journey. Like, what really stood out to me was that person that you met that was from your hometown.
Yeah, it was
Like,
very powerful. Yeah.
that was just amazing. And you know what's interesting is for you it was someone from your hometown in Michoacan, which by the way, I'm sure we've talked about this. My father's from Michoacan too.
Yeah.
That's why we vibe, girl. That's why. No. But yes, having that is so critical. Like I remember when I moved out here to Kansas City, algo más o menos igual me pasó a mí. I applied for an internship with LULAC, and the contact person was Daniel Silva. I was like, dope. Okay, a Latino in Kansas City. I got this. I'm gonna talk to him. I'm gonna let him know like I want to volunteer. I want to connect with the Latino community out here. He looks at my resume and he saw I went to Kelvin Park High School in Chicago. So he calls his sister and he goes, "Hey, do you know Adelia Perez?" And she goes, "Yeah, we were in PE class together." So it turns out, small world. Like I went to school with his sister. He went to the Sumner of Chicago, by the way. He
Wow.
went to Lane Tech.
That's
So
awesome.
I didn't see him a lot. But yeah, his house, his parents' house is literally behind my parents. Like if I go to their kitchen, I look out the window, I see Danny's house across the street, an alley just right over. And so he goes, "Hey, my sister put a good word in for you." And I said, "What?" And yeah, small world. So no, that's beautiful though. Finding someone that you can connect with, and then you know that they're gonna help you.
Yeah.
They're those bridge builders, right? Or what I used to say when I was in ESL 8 at Northwest is like a community link for the Spanish speaking community that didn't feel connected to their schools, right? They'd come in and be like, Miss Perez, todo, necesito gafas. ¿Dónde puedo ir a una dentista? Like, just like, wow, I do more than, support in math classes.
It is true. It is true because I remember my mom for any little thing she would contact Miss Rios. That's her name,
Yes.
Miss Rios.
Hay que preguntarle a Ms. Rios. Yes.
Miss Rios.
Yes. Anything. Oh, I love it. And shout out to those that have supported you. That's what I was gonna ask you. What was the person's name? Was it Miss Rios?
Yeah, Mrs. Rios.
It was Rios, and then Father Hermes and Dr. Silva. Like
Yeah.
those folks that were there at the right time for you and inspired you along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, beautiful. I'm sure your mom's super proud.
She is. My dad is the one that she keeps telling me, "When are you gonna be done with school? You keep going back to school. You love it so much."
Yeah.
It's like, is there gonna be a day that you're not having homework or things to do? Because I was also doing an endorsement for ESL,
Mhm.
but I
Oh.
wasn't able to finish it last year. But I had
Mhm.
I did some assignments and things like that. So he will always call me, and I was doing homework. And he's like, "Are
Yeah.
you ever gonna be done with your education?" So
Well,
one
you know what? To teach is to learn twice. And it's almost like once a learner, always a learner. Like, I know I love learning, I'm a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
And Alicia, when I got my master's, I remember saying, I'm done. Like, I thought I was done. And now I'm back in school. But I did take a 10-year break, and it was beautiful. Like,
That's
no
good.
deadlines for paper. I mean, I had other deadlines as a teacher and a coach, right? But oh man, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Alicia.
Mhm. Thank you for
And
opening the space for me to share this, and I guess
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So you've shared about like great experiences and opportunities and connections that you've made with folks that have been there for you. You are the first gen, right? College graduate. Um, and you've also like, I'm sure the hurdles of learning language. How
Yeah.
old were you when you came again?
10.
10. Yes.
Fifth
That's
grade.
different. Yeah, it's different. Like when I came, well, I was born, my story. I was born in Chicago, but we went to Mexico to live there for first grade. I did the whole first grade, La Primera Comunión también. And then I came back and I didn't know any English. I was in the ESL bilingual program in Chicago public schools. But what were some of your hurdles? What were your hurdles, whether they were in your career or early before your career, that have made following your dream of becoming an educator a little more difficult?
Well, it's just being the first generation. Like I told you, me trying to figure out everything by myself and not having assistance from my parents. They were there to support me, obviously, emotionally. But I was the one that I had to, if I wanted something, I had to go out and look for it. So that's one of the things. And the language too. I still struggle sometimes. Like I forget words or my accent. Sometimes I have to repeat myself because I don't know certain things, and that I believe that also hurt my self esteem. That's one of the things that I struggle the most, especially in my teenager years, and also when I was in college, and also now. People, if you ask about Alicia, is usually a quiet girl and doesn't really talk too much, but I believe it comes from that, from learning English at a late stage, and it just hurt my self esteem. However, I believe that I am a person that people will notice because of my work, what I do, and I might be a little quiet, but I know what I want, and I work for what I want. So that's something that hurts me sometimes, just my not speaking up when I have to. Uh, and then now professionally, it's just mental health as well. Just being
Yeah.
able to balance work with your personal life, um, not bringing home your issues from school, and trying to find that balance that is going to allow you to be happy emotionally, have energy physically, because I get out of school and I'm drained. I don't have energy to do anything, and it's just finding the balance. And it's my fifth year, and I'm still struggling and trying to. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. Especially last year. Last year, I was very close, and you know this, of leaving the
Yep.
career. I was at a very low point. Um, However, again, somebody that I knew
Mhm.
helped me out, and I was able to find a new position where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
And it was just time for me to move on, and I believe I am where I'm supposed to be at right now. I am working towards a master's degree. I know more things are gonna come up my way,
Mhm.
and just to be positive and trying to, whenever I encounter a problem, fix it instead of complaining about it, and try to find solutions and not quit like I was trying to do last year. So
Mhm.
I'm happy I stayed, and thank you also to you, because you also supported me and gave me some alternatives of what to do, and you were sharing with me job opportunities and things like that. And I believe having that support from other fellow teachers that I knew helped me a lot too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, kudos to you for reaching out to folks and talking about it, because you could have easily made the decision to resign and keep moving forward and never looking back. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for, reaching out to folks that you trust. And I remember clearly, like the day you were talking to me, I'm like, wow, this is her fourth year. And I'm about to go into the question in a little bit about the 3 year thing. But I was like, how can we retain her? Maybe not at the school she's at, but somewhere else. And what can we do to support her? And so telling you, like, yo, we're on a virtual career fair right now. Tune in. I
I
mean, there's
remember.
charters, there's other schools in the KC Metro. I mean, look, you can go to California. Somebody from California was tuned in, and so um and I said, there's other buildings that might align with your values, that might offer different supports, right? And those are things that now we can talk about in interviews.
Yes.
You can ask those questions in interviews. What supports and coaching and growth opportunities are in place? How do I get evaluated? How if I want professional development opportunities, what does that look like? If I want to take my kids on a field trip, what does that process look like? Run through it with me real quick. These are questions that I wish I asked and thought about asking, or even had the courage to ask,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, absolutely. And you're welcome. And a shout out to Susanna, because I know she showed up. Like, she
Yeah.
went to your school, she showed up. Yes, beautiful community. You mentioned something else, but I'm going to come back to that probably. But what keeps you going? So you talk about your journey, you talk about some of the hurdles that you've had, your mental health hurdle, like how many of us were suffering, as educators during COVID, right? That it started with like not being able to communicate with our kids. I want to say not being able to, but just there was a barrier to that. It didn't matter how many phone calls, emails. I mean, we couldn't even see their faces on Zoom because they turned their cameras off. And all we saw were words in the chat, words and smiley faces and emojis, right?
Yeah, I remember
And
when we went back to school, a bunch of kids would tell me, "Oh, I was in your class last year. Like, what's your name? I don't know who you are."
yes,
It
like,
was
what was your
hilarious.
picture? Oh, that was you with your dog. Okay, and with the hoodie this way. Okay.
Yeah, it was an
Oh, I
experience.
love it. but yes, it started with that, right? That really took a toll on our own mental health, and then all of COVID, and wow. But what keeps you going? What keeps you going?
Well, what I can say for sure is my mom and my husband. Those are two people that, when I was struggling, they said, like, you have worked so hard to be where you're at. You wanted to be a teacher so bad, so why quit? And oh my God, I'm gonna get emotional.
Wow.
So it was a conversation that I had to do, and a reflection that I had to do with myself. Like, really, like, I remember I will stay late at school because at UMPC, because at home there were all my siblings, my parents, for example, they were doing things, so I didn't have that space. So I remember I would stay until 9 or 10 in the library doing assignments, and
Yes.
I had a job then, so I had to
Yes.
go somewhere, work at my job, because I was working at a hotel at that time, and I was taking orders. So I was in the little office in the basement. Nobody could see me. So whenever I didn't have a phone call at my job, I would be doing my homework in a really quiet space. So I went through all those experiences. I replayed them in my head, and I said, you know what? You need to stay where in your career. You need to look for something else. It was just my first 4 years, so I didn't know what was outside of that place that I was working at. So I went ahead, and that day, it was very close to the end of the school year. I remember getting a phone call from Jessica telling me, "Hey, there's an opportunity," and the first person I thought of was you. So you want to apply? I was like, "What in the world is happening right now?" Like, everything was aligning. So when I told my mom, like, "Hey, mom, they just called me from this place," she was like, "Oh my God, en serio?" That's what she said. I mean, she is excited. Alicia, tienes que hacerlo, and like pushing me to do it and like try to apply. And I went to the interview and all that stuff. And it's just having those two people pushing me and like reminding me of why I wanted to be a teacher so bad. And
Awesome.
just having those two, and also um, what keeps me going is those good days when I can have a really good class, everybody into what we're doing, and making those long lasting relationships with them, with the kids, because I feel like I actually make my job right if that happens, if that's a result from it. Right now I have previous students that I had in the past. I already graduated 2 3 years ago, and they're still in contact with me, so they're still trying to connect with,
Nice.
which is like, what, like, really, did I really impact their lives? And having those experiences and those interactions with those students that I had already, it's something that reminds me, like, you're doing the right thing, you're doing
Yeah.
something good, something positive. And maybe I don't see I don't see right away the results from what I'm doing, but I would see it eventually as I go and continue. So
Absolutely.
those are the things that keep me going.
Well, shout out to Mama. What's your mom's name?
Well, we call her Lupe.
Mama Lupe. You call your mom Lupe?
Well,
Like,
her friends, tias and stuff like that.
okay.
I call her Madre.
Madre. Ay, shout out to Madre and husband. I met your
Mhm.
husband. He's awesome.
Yeah,
This
but
is great. No, having that support at home is important too. I mean, definitely makes a difference. And you also mentioned something. See, it's coming back with the mental health, finding that happy balance, like coming home as an educator, and maybe in anything that you're passionate about, right? But in this context, we're asking an educator here. But like, as an educator, you come home, or even an admin,
mhm.
an office staff member. I mean, you have so many stories to share about what happened during the day, and some are good, some are sad, right? Like just sad instances, or you know, different emotions and big feelings come up. So like finding that balance. I'm sure your mom and your husband are there to hear you through it all too. You know.
Yeah.
Because I remember a cousin would tell me, Delia, you should share stories about your teaching because you're funny. Like, oh gosh, I would teach her. I would stay up to date with all the lingo,
Really?
like all the slang words, the social words, the cool words, whatever. Dances. Remember, like shoulder lean? That's showing my age. Long time ago. Shoulder lean and stanky leg and all that. Like I
I
bring
know.
it home to my cousins in Chicago who are at my age, and they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, it's the new stuff. Like, this is cool. Oh Lord. Okay. Um, this next question is about similar to what we've been talking about, just like how do we retain Latinx educators? But Latinx educators right now are the fastest growing demographic of educators in the nation. Unfortunately, we're also some of the quickest to leave the teaching profession. So 3 years is the average amount time spent in the classroom. You surpass that, right? And the national average is 5 years. So at a national level, 5 years for all teachers, 3 years for Latinx educators. What do you think of this is, and what advice would you give Latinx educators who are listening right now that might be struggling?
Well, I believe one of the main causes could be maybe the pay. That could be one of the things that we're asked to do so many things, and sometimes just the pay might not be enough for that person, for that family. We don't know. For example, I don't have kids, but I can imagine those that have kids and having the salary that we get, especially single
Mm-hmm.
parents. It could be a little bit difficult to be able to manage a household with the pay that we get, and also not having the support in their building, or not having that support of friends or those teachers that are like you, that look like you, that speak like you, Spanglish or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that you can open up to them and ask for advice, ask for I guess to find the right resources. It might be a little bit difficult. um like I mentioned, for me, that's what saved me from not quitting. Having those teachers that I already knew from the past that were Latino and helped me out, and they understood where I was coming from and what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not just that instance that made me leave the school that I was attending, but there was many things that year that happened to me personally and professionally, and having those teachers, those that support system helped me out a lot, and I'm here because of that. I believe that's
Yes.
very, very important.
Yes. Dr. Flo, who I interviewed here, I think like in April, he talked about like it's important to find your people, and your people aren't always going to be like tu gente, like Latinos. It might be just your people that are supporting you, that are, in partnership with you, in collaboration with you, in community with you, and that are going to have your back. And sometimes it's an administrator. Sometimes, it's the dean of students. I hung out with a school nurse for a couple of years. She was my support system, and she was just fun to talk to. And I would pretend like something was wrong with my hand so I could just like have a break and just laugh with her. Right. Like, those are your people. Those are the people that, that support you along the way.
Yeah, this just
That's,
reminded me of Miss Franco. She started working where I was working at, and she's kind of my age. We're Latinas, both of us. So it
oh,
was,
Franco?
yeah,
Franco?
yeah, Franco.
Yes, totally know her. I'm gonna let you finish, but I'm gonna tell you how I know her. Go ahead.
It just I already knew her from HDF because I was the sponsor of a club there, and so I
Oh,
kind of
cool.
knew her, and from UMKC too. And having her there at school made it so much fun too, because I will
Yeah.
have that chismeando all the time sometimes, instead
Yeah.
of we would chismear and stuff. And I had never had that before, so
Yeah.
having that kind of also made it nice for me, the experience. And I remember like the when I took the decision that I was gonna leave the school, she
Hmm.
got a bunch of kids from my club with the kids that knew me, and they wrote letters to me. And she even bought
Oh,
me some concert tickets for Santa Fe Clan. I don't know if you know of that.
wow.
So she came up with this like it was just such an amazing surprise that she did for me, and just her taking the time to get all my kids together, that ones that I felt that connection with, to write me letters. That was above and beyond, and that was very, very nice. And I miss her. I really miss having Franco with me in the same building, but now we're doing our thing.
Yes.
And
those are your people, like exactly those people that lift you up, that see you. So Franco, this is how I know her. When I moved here in 2004, I worked at an elementary school called Askew Elementary. So 2005, I think, is when I started there. She was a student there. Her brother Luis Franco was I was an ESL tutor, so I worked with the ESL kids, and Franco was not like on my list to support. I mainly worked with Luis, but I saw her a lot, and I'll never forget their faces. So I see her at the KCK New Teacher Orientation last year in the fall. And I look at her and I'm like, is your last name Franco? And she goes, yeah. And I said, are you Luis's sister? She goes, yeah. I'm like, don't tell me you're a teacher. Like, she goes, I am a teacher. I was like, has it been that long? So I knew her since she was probably in maybe third grade. Wow. And what a small world. Like, and I'm glad to hear she's in the classroom. I know we're looking to connect soon as well.
Yeah, she's doing great things at the school.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool. But yes, find your people. I love it. Love it. Well, Alicia, we have one more question. If you had one thing that you wanted all of your students to walk away from your class, what would that be?
Well, what would be? It's a very difficult question, but I believe it will depend. For my heritage students, I believe it's growing a sense of pride of who they are. For example, right now I'm spending some time on an identity activity, and nice. I want them to go above and beyond, to think about like of things that we're talking about cultura bicultural, something like that. And they have to learn and identify like different aspects of their American identity and their Latino identity. So it's very interesting seeing how each kid feels so proud to share experiences about their family. Like they want to share those stories with others, and just giving that space for them to be proud and to be able to say to apreciar las diferencias entre ellos. And for my Spanish one, as a language teacher, I believe it's very rewarding when we see them using the language and to interact with each other. It's just awakening that passion in some of them. And when they like, Ms. Rodriguez, I want to continue learning the language. For example, at Sumner, where I'm at right now, they have 5 levels, and they are already telling me, what can I do to continue in the program? So just awakening that in them and seeing their happy faces when I talk to them completely in Spanish and they understand everything that I just said. Just their faces, just like, I understood what you said. What?
That's so cool.
It's just very different heritage with Spanish one, but just seeing that. And for example, yesterday I had we have teacher conferences, and parents telling me, I don't know what you're doing in your classroom, but my student comes home and they're talking to us in Spanish. They're practicing their Spanish skills. It's just like, are they really using Spanish at home? And they're like,
yes.
So it's that awakening that in them, and that interest in learning about, because I always tell them, that's the first questions that I ask at the beginning. How many countries speak Spanish? A lot of them say Mexico. So just letting them know that there's more to that. There's more than Mexico. There's so many countries and where they will be able to use the language, and a lot of them kind of see that, I could be able to talk to more people than what I thought originally. So that could be some things that I want my students to work with. how to
Absolutely. Well, I want you to know that you are making an impact. This is your 5th year teaching, and they're gonna come back to you. Like, I ran into Franco, even though she wasn't my direct student, but like, they come back and they show up older and hairy with kids and like looking
yeah.
like grown-ups. I see some of them on my Facebook doing adult things. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, okay, never mind. Like, but great things like photographers. I mean, I see some basketball players that are going pro in Mexico.
Wow.
Like, they're not Mexican, but they live in Cancun playing ball out there. And I'm like, yes, it's so great to see them continue to grow. And you have to know, Alicia, that you're making an impact. I see you smile when you talk about your students and your experiences. So keep that light shining, and always know that the LEC is here for you, and anything that we can do to continue to support and elevate you.
Thank you.
Community, LEC community, our time is up. In the chat, only on YouTube and Facebook I was able to share, but nominate a Latinx educator today. The deadline is November 14th. You can nominate Alicia Rodriguez-Montañez, educator at Sumner Academy. Also, next Thursday, we'll take a break from Ask an Educator, but we're going to have a rewind of the Afro Latinx, not the story circle, it was a panel. It was an Afro Latinx panel of Afro Latinx educators from across the nation. And the moderator was our very own Noemi Cortez. So tune in next week for that. And I will see you the following. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Adios.
Adios.